Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Lovely People webinar. And this week, I have got the lovely Lee here with me in person.
Hello, everybody.
And I am going to be speaking to the lovely Maureen York. And I just managed to have 5 minutes and have a little chat with her before everybody jumped on here. And yeah, she's doing some great stuff and got some wonderful things to share with us tonight. So, Maureen, can I hand over to you, and if you just kind of start telling us a little bit about some of the things you were telling me before you came on. It would be great if you start sharing some of your stuff, and then if anyone has got any questions, there's a chat box at the bottom. You can put something in chat, you can put your hand up, you can unmute yourself. We would absolutely love to hear from you. So Maureen, over to you.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me on tonight. It's a great pleasure to be here and to see everybody and all your smiley faces, which is fabulous. So, got a bit of a throat on me tonight, so if I start coughing, don't worry about it. I think I'd like to start by sharing what I've been seeing more and more deeply over the past probably 6 to 9 months. We hear a lot in the principles world around I'll be okay no matter what. And it's a phrase that's used almost like giving out sweets. I'll be okay no matter what. Yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll just be fine. And I'm not broken and I don't need fixing and all of those statements. And I never realized the power behind it. I never realized it at such a deep and unshakable level until last summer. And it's kind of just kind of enhanced and grown on and embedded itself to such a place now that it doesn't really matter what occurs for me physically. I'm absolutely fine. So what occurred last summer, 22nd of June to be precise, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I went to the session or the consultation where I was being given the diagnosis on my own, purposely on my own. My body, I needed to assimilate the information, nobody else. And my husband knew I was going to the hospital and I was getting the upshot of all the tests that they'd had done recently. And I was almost having to manage the medical staff and the medical team that were sharing this diagnosis with me. You could see them going into free fall because they said, "You're on your own." And I went, "Yep." And there was almost like well, this doesn't happen. They normally have somebody with them. We don't know whether they're going to go into meltdown on me. You could see the thinking process going on in their heads. And I says, "I'm absolutely fine." I says, "My husband works in London. I'm here on my own. Is that a problem?" No, it's not a problem. It's just unusual." Okay. So then they kind of carried on and they were pussyfooting around the whole topic about what they were trying to tell me. And I literally put my hands up and I went, "Can we just stop this conversation? Don't drip feed me information. Give me the full picture. Let me handle it. Let me absorb it." I says, "But drip feeding me is going to drive me insane." Now, I can fully appreciate where they're coming from because they can never know how anybody's going to react or assimilate the information that they're going to share with them. So they're trying to be as gentle and as sympathetic in their process, but it was actually driving me nuts. And I had to tell them that. And once they kind of grasped where I was coming from, the rest of the consultation went really, really smoothly. And the consultant then left, and it was that I was left with a nurse, and she goes, "You do realise the gravity of what you've just been told?" And I went, "Yeah." She went, "Oh, right, okay." And for me, it's having that kind of understanding that no matter what they had told me that day, I was going to be fine. yes, there was going to have to be some treatment. So I've had surgery. I got covered in surgical glue, which I had a massive reaction to. I had to be restitched at one point because it didn't heal properly. I then went through radiotherapy, and on the 4th of December, I got this fabulous consultation with another radiologist that said, "You're fine. You've got the all clear."
Cool.
So, but all through that process, I was managing more the people around me than me going into free fall. I was so comfortable in my own skin, so comfortable in my own not understanding and knowledge of how this thing called life works, how the principles work through me. And there was no need to go into panic, free fall, get anxious, because if anything, that might have elongated the healing process.
Mm.
It's about just having that deep and unshakable knowing that I'm okay. And when the Viva conference was occurring back in November, the lovely Julie, another lovely person, Julian Freeman,
full of lovely people.
so the lovely Julian Freeman interviewed me, and then he turned it into a small video. It lasted about 3 minutes, and I find myself explaining it as the unwanted gift that I had been given, that turned into my greatest learning. Yes. So I'm not sitting here and going, yeah, I can handle anything, throw cancer at me, throw whatever at you. It's not about that. It's about when you step into that deep and unshakable knowing and understanding that whilst crap happens, and it does, let's face it.
Yeah, it does.
You know, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're really going to be okay.
Yeah.
So partway through this interview, I found myself saying to Julian that even because at this point, this was prior to the all clear. First of all, I was saying, well, they've taken out the lump. I've had the radiotherapy. And I was questioning, do I still have cancer? I never even felt like I had cancer in the first place. Do I still have cancer? It was a question I had. But moreover, I was actually saying, even if they turned around to me at the consultation in December and said, we've missed a bit, there's more treatment to be had, we found something else, I would have been just fine. I was trying to explain this to a lady over the weekend, actually, who also had been through some treatment for breast cancer. And she misinterpreted what I was saying. So I was saying, even if they turned around today and said, we found something else, that I would be okay. She says, well, I wouldn't want to go through any more chemo or any more radiotherapy. I says, I'm not suggesting that that's what I'm after. I'm not sitting here going, please give me radiotherapy or please give me chemo. It's more about no matter what is put in front of you. If you really see how life works,
yeah,
then there's nothing to fear. I'm not advocating that everybody goes through some kind of major crisis in order to see this. But if you do see it, it flips your world on its head. Well, it certainly did for me. So that's the first part.
I think what is occurring to me when you're saying that is when Sid said, if everybody could see and understand not to be frightened of their own experience, that alone would change. And like you said, we're not going to avoid experiences. We're here on this planet, we're all going to, I could tell you 3 things that have happened to me in this week. We're all going to have experiences. And it is like you have seen what was behind Sid's words when he said, if you see not to be frightened of your own experience, you'll be okay.
And I don't know whether it was Sid, but certainly somebody said life is a contact sport.
Yeah.
So you can never avoid things happening around you, to you, etc. But it's about, as you say, not being frightened of your experience.
Mm.
So I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else then.
Yeah, you
No,
said,
it's all right.
that was the first part, and then
That
something.
was the first part. But actually, there was more to it than that. There's a almost like a, no, it's gone. There was something I was going to say, but it'll come back to me. If it's meant to be said, it'll come back. So with that in mind, I reflect back to when I first came across the principles back in 2010. And up until that point, probably about for the previous 25 years up until that point, I'd had a permanent headache, literally every day. And it varied in intensity. I'd seen therapists, GPs, the works. And a doctor, a military doctor, because I'm ex-army, a military doctor once said to me, he says, "It's just you being you." And I thought, you flippant son of a what's it? What are you not living in my head? So this was pre-principles, pre-understanding, and I was just in pain all day, every day, but still having to function. So anyway, so I came across the principles in May 2010. And then one day in, I think it must have been early November the same year, I was preparing for a one-day event I was doing the following day. And ordinarily that would be like a really high stress period. I would be worrying about people turning up, what was going to be happening, this, that, and the other. Was the venue be okay? All of these things that would have been running around my head. Well, I got to the end of the day, and I hadn't taken any headache tablets. And my first reaction was, oh, that's good. It wasn't. My first reaction was, it's okay, you'll be back to normal tomorrow. because my normal was having a thumping headache and ramming paracetamol or whatever down my neck. So the next day, get up, I run the event. It was really great. Got to the end of the day, hadn't taken any headache tablets. Weird. I'll be okay tomorrow, says I. Now, it just so happened that about 4 days later, I was actually due to see a neurologist. And I explained to him, I says, what's going on? I says, the headaches seem to have stopped. He went, well, don't get too carried away. Don't get too kind of excited about this. He says, you know, it's going to take 28 days for all the toxins to leave your body with all the tablets that you've been taking over the years. It's going to take 28 days. I'm thinking, 28 days? 28 days with no tablets? Are you kidding me? So he says, well, he says, I can sign you into my pain clinic and I can do that and I can do that. I says, no, it's okay. Let me just see how I get on. So at the time I was working with Jamie Smart and he was advocating the use of what he called morning pages. So we would log on to an online system and just put our thoughts down for the day. And I was recording this whole process. So it got to day 10, day 20, day 30, day 40, and so on. And it got to day 200, day 300, and then it's turned into years. And it's not that I never have a headache anymore. It's that I don't buy into the headache anymore. What I realized was that the more attention I was giving to the pain, the more attention I was giving to the notional headache. And moreover, the more tablets I was taking to try and counteract it, the worse it got. So I was told once by an acupuncturist that whilst on the back of paracetamol packets it says don't take any more than 6 or 8 in 24 hours, where it doesn't say is don't take any more than 30 in a month. And I was chucking them down my neck at 6 or 8 every day because it said I could take 6 or 8, and I was taking them every day. But analgesics actually create their own pain. So so at any one point there was no way of me knowing whether it was a real pain or a created pain by the tablets. But I was unaware of all of this while this kind of, I'm not, I seem to have kind of not seem to have any headaches. But what I realized was that the more attention I gave to the headache and to the pain, real or created, the more pain I had. So people wouldn't come up to me and say, "Hi, Maureen, how are you?" They'd say, "Hi, Maureen, how's your head?" Because they always knew I had a headache. How was your head today? And it gave more attention to the headache. So that was a complete revelation. Understanding for me that it was almost a thought created situation that I'd done to myself. Thinking, wow. Now, don't misunderstand me. If anybody else out there is having whopping headaches every day, you go and see about it. I was under medical supervision, and I have an annual brain scan. So I lie down for half an hour every year, and they go, "Oh yeah, brain's still in there. We can't account for functionality, but the brain is still in there." Having my next one next Tuesday, in case anybody's interested, because I've got some leaking blood vessels in my head. So yeah, they keep a watching brief in case I'm going to go weird, or even more weird than I actually am. So yeah, so there's a big caveat on this about, if you do have headaches, don't just think that you're overthinking things. That was just my experience. But when I realised that, it was a real eye opener as to how powerful the mind is, how powerful this whole thinking malarkey is, and how much it had impeded my life. How many times had I not gone to events? How many times had I not gone out with friends? How many times had I gone to bed early because of this thing that was called a headache that I had actually self-created? Now, there's no point in me going back and giving myself a hard time about it, but it was an interesting reflective point. And just the whole sense of when it hit me about, wow, that was what was going on, and just letting it go, it put a whole different complexion on life, a whole different complexion. What else shall I talk about, Debs?
I have loved that. And do you know what? I was aware that you had been poorly. I was aware that you had cancer, but I've never heard your story about it. So that was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And your headache thing as well. You know, it's really the thing that's kind of coming to me while you're saying that is what I've always seen about the principles is the truth that they are pointing to is universal. It's the same for all of us. And yet when we get pointed towards this truth, what we see and what happens for us is personal and exactly what we need and what we want. And that's, you know, when you hear these actual stories of people, and it's not, you know, if someone else has cancer, if someone else has a headache or anything, their experience of it, and even when they're pointed towards the principles, may be different, but what it will be is for them. It's you know, what you saw around your cancer was perfect for you.
Yeah,
it helped you. It was what you needed in those moments. And
absolutely.
What you've seen. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that. So I've shared the little video that Julian did around the interview that we had in November. I shared it with a few folk, and it's interesting to see the different viewpoints on it, or the different reactions. I wasn't doing it to get people to like me or any of those things. It was just a sharing of my experience. Yeah. And as you say, it was my experience, very personal to me. And if my story helps anybody else, then fabulous. But I wasn't doing the sharing of the story to get brownie points or kudos or, "Whoa, isn't she brilliant?" It was just a sharing of my story and how I saw it in that moment on that day. And there's nothing to say that I won't have a different experience of it, or a different experience of anything on a different day, because as we all know, thought kind of floats in and out. That was just how I was seeing it on the day. I was also reminded, well, I was listening to you, Debs, about the reaction of one of my surgeons. I had two fabulous surgeons, and this female senior surgeon, she had decided initially to do one particular type of procedure, and then about a week before the actual operation, she asked me to come in, and she wanted to change the type of procedure, and wanted to take out a lymph node and do this, that, and the other. So she's yattering away at me as if to say, to try to get my permission, which she needs to get.
Yeah.
And I'm going, yeah, that's absolutely fine. I was actually going to ask you to take out a lymph node, because if that would mean that I only have one operation rather than two, that would be awesome. And she went, you've been very calm about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at her and I went, well, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And she stopped in her tracks, and I went, that's just how I see this. I said, and I actually stopped short from saying this, but what was going through my head was, you're qualified, aren't you? You know what you're doing. I didn't actually say it out loud, but it was rumbling around my head, going, do you want me to show me your certificates? So I had no qualms about the fact that she was doing a slightly different procedure, and it was going to be a little bit more invasive, and because she was taking out a lymph node, I would have to have nuclear medicine, and they would turn me blue, and all of this kind of malarkey. It was fine. I was completely intrigued by this. And I remember being taken up to the ward after the operation, and one of the first things I did, after kind of letting my husband know that, hey, I was still alive, was to contact one of my mentors. And this mentor isn't a 3 principles person, but he's somebody who supports me no matter what. And the first thing I said to him, was, I've been through this experience for a reason. And whether that's to share my story, whether that's to point other people to the truth that I know unshakably, or whatever, I says, but right here, right now, I know I've been through this process for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you exactly what it is right here, right now. Whether it's just to, even if it was just to propel me to get out there and be more visible.
Yeah, be you, be seen in the world. It's really, it's great. It's great talking to you and hearing your stories and hearing your experience. And this, I've known you for a long time, and we've never had this conversation. And it's really great. So thank you, whoever, thank you for the experiences you've had, and thank you for sharing them, because I think it's so important when we can share these things, because so many people struggle with so many things, and understanding the principles, to me, across the board, as I say, it doesn't matter if you can point yourself towards this truth, orientate towards this truth, there's something in here for you. And when we kind of all come from these different angles, medical angles, issues with our children, issues with our relationships, issues with our jobs, issues, whatever it is that we seem to have. And so I think if people are prepared to share what they have seen, and like you said, it might not be that somebody sees or has the same experience as you, but there definitely is, to me, there is a way that we can have a lighter, brighter, easier experience of anything when we have this understanding as our foundation.
And it's, you can share the same piece of information or the same understanding with a number of people, but they will all hear it differently, because they'll all hear or take what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a young lady on this call listening in, and her name is Gillian Fox, and she and I were sat in the same room in Salt Spring Island, listening to Chip Chipman and Elsie Spittle doing one of their one of their schools. And we were sat next to each other, so I can vouch for the fact that the same information came past both our ears. And I sat going, oh, this is interesting. And she was in floods of tears. I'm thinking, what did I miss? And I was really quite miffed.
Mm.
And something hit her so hard.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there I heard the same words, but it had no impact. So you can have the same information, the same words coming at you, but you will only ever absorb or intake what you need to from it at any given moment. And when you hear it, you hear it. And if you don't, you don't. And it's not about searching for it, because the more you go searching for it, the less you'll see.
Mm. I just love, I mean, one of the reasons that I love doing these webinars is because I just think, just stay in this conversation. And like I say, it's not about searching for something, but it's just kind of put yourself in the way of this information, just, whatever, because it's not in the words. It's absolutely not in the words. And it is very much, it's waking something up within you.
Absolutely.
You kind of just, I love being in this conversation. I love inviting people to stay in this conversation, because you just don't know what you're going to hear. And even like you, when you were in that room and the two of you had a totally different experience, and maybe it looked to you like you didn't hear what Gillian heard. Who knows what you heard in that room that actually impacted you when you went to see the doctor? We don't even know what is going on, do we? I'm thinking, I've over the time I've kind of looked in this direction and began to see things in this direction, it's amazed me. I can't connect what I've heard to what has changed for me necessarily all the time. I just find myself in situations that I think, wow, a year ago, 6 months ago, last week, I would have reacted so differently. And yet something happens and something has changed within me. And that just seems to be, it's not about searching for something and doing that, but it is just, just have some fun. It's great to be in here. What a better thing to do with your evening? Have a friend come and stay with you, sit with a load of really lovely people, and just have a great conversation. Just have some light, and something is gonna. If you need something, that something is gonna rub off on you.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. It's about staying in the conversation. I mean, Garrett Kramer calls it staying in the game.
Yeah.
And even when things are going a bit west and you're caught up in your thinking, just stay with it. So I find people. So I work with some of the brightest minds in the world. These people that call themselves academics that are based at the University of Oxford, and yet, they're so up in their heads, because that's where they live. For all the intellect and the academic ability, they live in their heads. And yet, I will pass somebody in a corridor and they'll say, "Can I just have a chat, Maureen?" Or they'll come to my office. "You got a minute?" They're hearing something. I don't know what it is, but some of them are getting more and more open to hearing that they could have an easier time through this kind of craziness they call academia. Or some of my students tend to just kind of gravitate towards me and say, "I could do with a conversation." And all I do is listen. And when you create that space that most of them never have on a regular basis, just somebody creating a space where they can just talk or just be, then you see the shift. I renamed my office. It's not number 110 on the first floor. It's the listening room, because that's what I do. It's what I do. So if I could get this further into Oxford, that would be fabulous. But I really don't think that's an option. But it's not doing this at a bigger scale, though. This is doing it one conversation at a time.
I think when something impacts you, the people around you. I mean, if we kind of look here on this call tonight, you know, there's 11 of us here sort of joining in this, and I heard something, you heard something, we've come together. There's a group here who kind of, we have no idea who else on this call is going to say something to somebody else that is going to impact somebody else. We don't, and you know, to me, it is about, do this for yourself. You know, I can remember when I first came across the principles, and I was very taken up with this, you know, oh, my children need this. And I got this kind of list of people who I used to say, I'm going to hit them around the head with a wet fish until they listen to this. You know, it's kind of like I'd got this list of people who had to hear this because I had to, you know, and then one of my realizations was, do you know what? Just do this for you. And what I have noticed, once I kind of stopped saving everybody, stop saving the world, that is almost what's happened. You know, I'm trying to force people to listen to me, and people don't. And then I say, I'm having a lovely people webinar, and 11 people have just kind of turned up. Yeah. It's sort of like it happens the other way around, doesn't it? We just kind of, I love being in this conversation because I think I'm going to benefit. And then I just think, do you know what? If anyone else wants to come as well, it'd be brilliant. If anyone else doesn't want to come, I'm totally up for having a conversation with Maureen on my own. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's just about showing up, isn't it? But being present for your own benefit, and other people will gain from that.
Very much so, yeah.
You know, and yeah, I mean, I see that, and it doesn't matter whether it's the person I'm sat next to on the bus, whether it's my family or whoever. If you're just present with somebody, there's an impact.
Yeah, and the first person to get present with is yourself, really, isn't it? Just
absolutely,
be there for you, and if you can be there, because I think. I know kind of as a mom and as a woman, it was very much kind of growing up, it's like it was really seen as selfish to be doing stuff for yourself, or to be, and you know, to kind of see that the other way around, to see that I have the biggest impact on the people I love the most when I am in a good place, when I'm shining. So if I kind of do that for me, that is the biggest gift I can give to other people. And that was a hard one, I think, to get my head around for a while, to kind of like, yeah, do you know what, it's okay to love you and to do this for you. It's okay just to hear something for you and for your life to improve, because that's kind of been the biggest gift that the people that I love the most have got from you know, from changing like that. And I think then we have, like you're talking about your office, you have no idea what impact you have had on, you know, you've worked with those bright minds. You just don't know what somebody, because of something you have said, and maybe it will never be yours to know. And I love the whole how these things can work out, and how there's things that can just be happening behind the scenes that we've got no idea how that happened. And, you know, you just have no idea what a massive impact you can possibly have had on somebody. So shall we ask if anyone has got any questions, or if anyone wants to join in our conversation? Or often they're a quiet bunch, I have to say. But
let's see.
So would anyone like to make a comment, join in the conversation? Has anyone got any questions, anything they would like to ask the lovely Maureen while she's here? Can you? Oh,
Gillian's got her hand up.
Cool. I can't always. Right. Okay. Gillian, you are unmuted.
Thanks. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Gillian.
Just something I wrote down when you were talking. Was there any moment with what you've recently been through where you actually did struggle against it and go, why me? Why this? Why now?
There wasn't I never went into the why me, or even why now. There were certainly times when I was thinking, could have done without that. And that was more about the pain that I was in, or the discomfort I was in when they covered me in this surgical glue that my body kind of reacted to. It was actually ended up being almost a 3rd-degree burn because my skin reacted so badly to it. So there were times when I was thinking, wish they hadn't done that. Was the polite way of saying it. Could have done without it. Yeah, I'm sure my thinking went in and out, but there was no why me. There was just a, oh, this is interesting. This is the next thing that life is showing me, and just being with that. But also, I've had some really crazy conversations with the nursing staff, and sharing the principles with I remember one conversation, sharing the principles, or just how she was seeing life at the time. She was a young nurse. She was shadowing my own breast cancer nurse, because I was allocated one particular lady that followed me through my whole kind of experience. And this young nurse was trying to decide which specialism to go in, and she was shadowing this breast cancer nurse. And my nurse had to go off and see a surgeon or somebody, and I was left having a conversation. And the young nurse says to me, she goes, "What do you do for a living?" I says, "Well," I work at the university. I says, "But I'm also a coach." She goes, "I can tell." And I went, "I've got a label." Is it stamped on the forehead? And she goes, "No," she goes, "You just give off such a really calm presence." I says, "Oh, right. Well, that's cool." I says, and then we had this really nice conversation about how she was showing up, what drew her to this particular option, and how her thinking was showing up in particular circumstances. It was really cool. It only lasted 10 minutes. And it wasn't my intention to sit there and go, well, there's mind, thought, and consciousness. And no, we just had a really kind of free-flowing conversation about what was happening for her. And it's those experiences, it's those instances that lift you out of that whole, well, I'm stuck in a hospital again scenario. I tell you, this sounds a bit weird, but one of the best experiences I had when I was going through the 15 sessions of radiotherapy I had to have, and they're done in blocks of 5 days on, 2 days off. And you'd go along to the suite where they had all these wild and wacky machines that you have to go into. And the majority of other people that were having the radiotherapy were either men in kind of like mid-60s and beyond who were coming in for prostate cancer, or other ladies, but the majority of people in the room were 60, 65 plus. And their biggest concern was not having the radiotherapy, was not having so many sessions that they had to have and ticking them off. Their biggest concern was, who's going to put the last piece in the jigsaw puzzle? Because there were these jigsaw puzzles that had been left out on every single table. And I used to watch in complete and utter fascination and awe about how these people who had gone through their whole lives, and they were now faced with having to have treatment for some form of cancer, and they were now going through their radiotherapy, and their biggest concern was who was putting the last piece in the jigsaw. That to me was the principles in action, because they were present, they were in the moment. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to get concerned about the treatment. They didn't have to get concerned about what had occurred prior to that. All they were concerned with was every time they came in, I used to watch it. I used to wander in and go, oh, all right, there's still pieces to be found. Or, oh no, somebody finished that one. There's a new puzzle now. Mm. So present, so just in the moment, figuring out the jigsaw puzzle. I thought it was amazing, absolutely amazing. So when I see that, when that kind of came up at me, kind of slapped me around the face, as if to say, whoa, this is really intriguing, really intriguing. That these people haven't I've never heard of the principles. They've probably never even read a self-help book for all I know. And they don't need it, because the principles are there whether you realize it or not. They're coming through you every single moment of every single day.
Mm.
There was one lady used to turn up. She was so in tune with the fact that she was going to have to be in this machine for so long. She brought her own music with her. She used to bring her own CD with her. Could you put this one on? Can we try that track today? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. My sessions were only about 10 or 15 minutes. Most, that was getting me set up on the machine and all of the rest of it. And they used to play music in the background. They used to say to you, what music would you like today? I says, what you got? Oh, she says, well, we've got a bit of this and a bit of that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Probably can't hear it anyway with all this clunking and whirring going on. I did get one additional benefit from the NHS though through all of this process. I now have body art.
Oh.
I was given 3 tattoos by the NHS, courtesy of the NHS, no cost applied. Now I have to be let me just clarify this. Each tattoo is only the size of the end of a pen. It's only a dot, but it's so they can line you up on the machine.
Oh wow! Oh cool.
So yeah, so I have body art courtesy of the NHS. So I now feel complete. I don't have to go to a tattoo artist and say, please stamp something on me. You know, although I did actually have a notion. I don't know. Has anybody seen the back of Gok Wan's neck? He's got "Made in China"
Oh no!
tattooed. And I was thinking, I could have one called "Made in Scotland," but I've stopped short of doing that. Anyway, I have now my body art. My life is complete.
Absolutely. What more?
But what more do you need? But no, the jigsaw puzzle thing, that's just the epitome of the principles in action.
I think, yeah, when I kind of came across the principles, when I look back on my life before, you can the whole time you can see your resilience. You can see, you know, where things that worked out in ways you would never imagine they would, and you can see the thread of your, you know, the thing that you started to talk about in the beginning, that okayness, you know, the fact that you're always okay no matter what. You can begin to see the thread of that throughout your life, can't you? And I think coming across this is it. We're not adding anything to anybody, we're just pointing out. And one of the interesting things when you were talking about your headaches, you kind of said you gave them a lot of attention, you thought about them a lot, they were a lot and so you knew a lot about them. And to me, I think it is when we have what the principles, what understanding and looking in this direction has done for me is I see my resilience way more now, because that's what I'm aware of. I'm kind of like, oh gosh, yeah, this is happening, but you're really resilient. And so I kind of, instead of getting a headache, I get resilient because I'm looking out for it. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing that everywhere, and I see it in other people. And you know, when I speak to people, that's I'm kind of pointing out. Yeah, do you know what? Because it is amazing when we see, like when you're talking about this, and you kind of think, wow, do you know? It's kind of going through my mind. Oh, what would I do if something like that happened to me? And there's loads of times we look at other people dealing with things and coping with things, and we think, oh gosh, I could never cope with that. And then we have our stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, and there I am coping. You know, whatever is kind of thrown at us, there I am coping. And it's that we imagine that if these things happen to us, we won't cope and we can't cope. And yet when you look around the world, and when you look at, you know, people who have disabled people with all sorts of illnesses, people like you going through cancer, people having problems with their children, whatever it is, and you just see them, who's going to put the last piece in the jigsaw? They're coping. Their resilience is coming to the fore, and they're coping.
Yeah, and I think what people don't or don't grasp is that it's not a finite pot. You don't turn up on the planet and, well, you've got this little pot here that's your resilience. You don't go using it up too soon, because it might run out. Is how some people I've been talking to recently perceive it. Oh, yeah, yeah. I used to have that kind of level of resilience and kind of inner strength, but I don't have it anymore. It's endless supply. It's there no matter what. It's the level of resilience you have is as strong from day one as it is at day X whenever you leave the planet. It's there. It's inbuilt. It's an endless supply. And when you grasp that aspect of it, that changes stuff.
Yeah, and kind of adding on to that, or expanding on that as well, it's not something. I know a lot of us, and I know I used to look at resilience as something I had to build. It was kind of like, it wasn't, and you've just kind of said we're born with it, and it's an endless supply. So it's not something we just have oodles of resilience, and as much resilience as we will ever need, no matter what. And if we need this much, we've got this much. If we need this much, we've got this much. It's kind of like, it's there all the time.
Yeah.
And in the same way, whatever happens to us, to me, it looks like, as I said, the looking at truth is the same for everybody, but what happens to us when we know that is personal to us. And it's like resilience. All of us have got resilience, and we've got exactly the amount we need.
Yeah.
It's infinite pot. So if we need the biggest pot in the universe, we've got the biggest pot in the universe.
So resilience. I talk about resilience to students. I actually do a couple of workshops on it or have done a couple of workshops on it for the support staff in my department. And the way I liken it is that old children's toy that used to be around. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Right? It's that we might shake a bit, we might get hit by something, but you will always come back to upright. It may not happen instantly, but it'll always happen. And it's when you lose sight of that, when you think that when you've been knocked down, that's it. That's when the thinking comes in, and you overanalyze it, and the more you overanalyze things, the more you stay in the down position. It's when you just let that self-correcting mechanism hit front and center again, you're back upright, and you can face whatever is next coming for you. And it's just pointing people in the right direction.
Yeah,
and when they see it, they see it.
Yeah, and it's brilliant because we're pointing towards truth. That there is, it's everybody, it seems to me, has that capacity to see that if they're pointed towards it in the moment that they need to see it. If it's something that, if it's going to be helpful for them, they will see something.
I had a fabulous conversation over lunch today with a young lady who's lost sight of her inner resilience, her inner strength. But she knows there's something there. She's just lost sight of it. And she knows that the Western medical treatment that she's been receiving for depression, anxiety, stress isn't working. She's fed up of taking tablets. She's fed up of being sent to CBT classes and other things. So she knows there's something more, and she knows that she's open to seeing something else. So when somebody comes to me in that vein, it's like an open door. So it's just about saying to people, whatever you do, just be open-minded about what life has to show you.
Yeah, I think we can jump in quite quickly, can't we, and make assumptions and tell ourselves our stories and kind of say, oh yeah, this is how it is, this is me, this is what, and it's, I think looking in the direction of the principles has just shown me how unfixed we are, how labels are fleeting. In this moment I'm this person, in this moment I'm, we're so not fixed. It's just so fluid. And
absolutely. And so the nature of the human human being is that we are dynamic by nature, forever changing, forever evolving, forever transforming, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And it's when you get a glimpse of that,
Yeah.
when you're open to seeing that you're not fixed, that you can see something new in every moment. You can, if you're open to seeing something new, life has a whole different complexion.
Yeah, life is just, it is amazing, isn't it? And it is like, you know, you talked about some things that, you know, you could say, oh, we've talked about some very serious subjects tonight, and yet there's that whole jigsaw pieces. There's fun even in those moments, even in those things, even at that time. I think it is seeing, you know, there is just, life has just got this playful fun element to it, and we can, and you know, my experience is way lighter since I've come across the principles. It's just like, right, surround yourself with lovely people and have lots of fun. It's just really, really good. So has anybody, I'm conscious of the time, so has anybody got any questions or comments, anything they'd like to share about what they've heard or anything? Would anyone like to join in with us? I can't see if anyone has got their hand up or anything. Oh, Helen.
Oh no, she's got a...
Helen?
Hello?
Hiya.
Am I on? Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Maureen.
Hey, Helen.
Hello.
How are you, gorgeous?
I'm good. Well, you're well settled home again by now.
I am.
So me too, thank God. No, I was wondering, I actually have a client who has the headache thing. I was wondering whether you'd have any tips on well, not so much tips, but she's beginning to have a better understanding of the role of thought in her experience. But she lives kind of in fear of a headache, being struck down by another headache. And she has medical advice, don't worry about that. She's been taking different medications and changing medications. I just wondered whether you'd have anything in particular that might occur to you as being useful for me to help her, maybe to guide her towards seeing that it's possibly that it's not, maybe not necessarily a medical condition. Or is that, well, anything that at all that you might have to offer, I'd be very open to hearing if you were able or willing.
Sure. Well, I can only talk about my experience, Helen, and clearly I don't know this lady, and I'm not a medical practitioner, so let's just put that on the table. What I would say was that what I didn't realize at the time, I only realized after the fact, that I was giving way too much attention to the headache, way too much attention to the whole potential of a headache, the physical pain, and all of those things. And it wasn't until after the fact, after the point of I didn't have pain, that's when it stopped me in my tracks, because I was so used to having the pain. But I was just giving it way too much attention. So it's like picking at a scab. The more you pick at it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
So pointing yourself to the pain, or giving way too much attention to something that is there or maybe isn't there, if she's concerned about a future headache.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think she is actually, more. It's a good point.
Then she's not living in the present moment.
True.
She's planting herself in the future where she's got no control anyway.
Exactly, because she was kind of fearful of taking on a job, and then how would she cope with if she had headaches? So it's a very.
I would invite her to be present to how good she's feeling in the moment. And if she does have a headache, it's acknowledging it, being aware of it, and then letting it go.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. Thank you. And I just wanted to say I'm so delighted that you've kicked this thing to touch, and that that you're here to speak so wisely to all of us, and to thank you so much. I'm so happy that Maureen York is here in the world with us, and in my world too. I love what
Cool.
you're doing, and I'm so delighted to spend time with you again.
Cool. Thank you, Helen. You're a treasure.
I wish you well, darling.
Thank you so much.
And I'm sure everybody in this call would second that completely, that it's brilliant that you are here with us and you are well enough to share what you shared tonight. And, it's been a great conversation. It's been an absolute delight and a pleasure to have you with us.
No, thank you. And thank you for everybody for turning up and joining in. It's been amazing.
Can you share with us? I will send out an email to people, but if anybody does want to have a conversation with you or ask you any questions, and the one thing we didn't talk about was your amazing retreat that's happening soon. So in case there's anyone who might want to come on your retreat, do you want to share that and share? And obviously, if anybody doesn't know Maureen but knows me, if you contact me in any form, I can, give you Maureen's details if you don't find them anywhere else. But
sure, yeah. So two of the simplest ways to get hold of me are either send me a private message on Facebook, or drop me an email to maureen@maureenyork.com. I'll be delighted to have a conversation with anybody. The retreat, it's a 3-day event. It's happening in a place called Elche, which is just south of Alicante on the Costa Blanca. It's going to be on the 13th to the 15th of April, and it's in the venue is a fabulous venue. I've checked it out myself. It's really rather lush. It's a 4-star spa hotel, and it's got a Zen garden of all things. I've no idea what you're supposed to do in a Zen garden, but it sounds really cool. And it's got a full spa treatment available to people, and yeah, it's going to be fabulous. And what I would say is, people keep saying to me, "Oh, so what's the topic of your retreat? What's the topic of your retreat?" The topic of the retreat is you. You are my agenda. I don't want to be setting, I only want to speak to people that have got this going on for them or that going on for them. I want people to show up. And if they've got something that they would like to get either a different point of view on, or just see something slightly differently, that's amazing, and that's what we'll deal with. It's going to be very light days. They're going to be morning sessions, probably about 9:30 for a 10 o'clock start, finish about 1. We'll have lunch, very much in the same vein as the format for Viva. We'll have the afternoon free, and then we'll reconvene about 6 o'clock, see what has occurred for people, and then we'll have dinner together. So very free-flowing, very relaxing. I'm not of a mind to have people in a classroom or a room between 9 and 5. If you want that kind of experience, then I'm afraid this is not for you. I want you to be able to completely unwind and unpack and relax. So if anybody's interested in finding out more about that, or having a conversation with me about that, then yeah, send me a personal message on Facebook, or drop me an email. I'll be delighted to talk to you about it. I'm keeping the retreat very, or reasonably compact, less, anywhere between about 12 and 15 people, but no more than that. And the right people will be in the room, and whoever turns up, I'm open to. And I'm not keeping it down to either a single sex. I've got participants and people that are exploring this, men and women. So
cool. That sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Maureen. And thank you so much. It's been really, really lovely to actually catch up with you and have this conversation. It's been really, really great. So thank you very, very much. So next week, if anyone would like to join us next week, we have got a super, super, super guest next week. We have got our very own Julie Weeks. Yeah, we love Julie, don't we? Julie is going to be sharing with us. She's fairly new to the principles, and she is going to be sharing with us what she has seen, because I just think it's really, really great to hear this from all sorts of angles and hear, you know, different people's experience, what different people have seen, because like we've been discussing tonight, Maureen, you just don't know what somebody is going to hear from who. And Julie is just amazing, and the difference I've seen in Julie in the time I've known her, she's brilliant. She's a truly lovely person. So anyone would like to join us next week, it would be absolutely fabulous to see you as always. So I think we will wrap up tonight, unless anyone has got a last question or anything anyone else would like to ask or say or add.
Thank you, Maureen. We love you. Thank you. You were brilliant.
Thank you.
I think I
Well done.
have I unmuted? No, what have I done? Unmute
Everyone.
I think I've unmuted everyone now. I should never be allowed on the technical thing, so everyone can say. It's been
Well
really
done.
great. Very much.
Sending love from Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Debra.
You're inspiring.
Bye.